Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we talk about self-care that is sometimes different from what you might have previously considered to be self-care. I think self-care is this huge, expansive, wonderful playground that we get to visit, and there are different practices and ideas and ways of being that are in that playground that it might be stuff you've never considered to be self-care before. And I think that is really exciting because if we just stick to cucumbers over our eyes and getting our nails done and getting a massage here and there and eating chocolate, those are all fantastic practices. And at the same time, they are temporary. Their results, you have to keep going back again and again for more and more and more. And they just don't work as well as going to what's inside you. Inside is where the magic happens. It can be terrifying. There are parts of us that we definitely do a lot of work to suppress, in particular our emotions, and there are limiting beliefs that are holding us back from reaching our full potential. And so when we get into that juicy, meaty, terrifying stuff, it makes transformation that is permanent. And that is what is exciting to me. To go into those scary places, it is definitely best to go with a guide. And so that's why I'm here. I love to share action steps with you on the teaching episodes. And I also love to have other guides come and be interviewed on the show because there are just so many different ways that we can walk the path of self-care. So today I have a fabulous guide with me. I'd love to introduce to you Chelsey Brooke. Chelsey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Today we are uniting Calgary, Canada with Kentucky from the United States.
That's right. Yeah.
So Chelsey, tell us a little bit about what lights you up and what is exciting about your life these days.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would start out by saying just what I do. I really found my passion, which I'm sure we'll get into more about what I do, but helping introverted women is where my passion is, and I've been able to create a life and business around that. So I think when you find something that you love, that you're excited to get out of bed in the morning, it doesn't feel like work, then anything like that is what you need to pursue. And fortunately, I've been able to do that. So just coaching introverted women and writing. I love to write, and in my spare time, be in nature, be outside, just sit and reflect. That's something that I like to do a lot as well. So those are just a few things that I'm super excited about, and I'm so fortunate that I get to do most every day.
That all sounds fantastic. And you're so right. When we are doing something that really drives us, it kind of propels us into the day. And there's if your list is anything like mine, is filled with all sorts of exciting things that I look forward to doing. And what a great way to live life. Like, we just are so blessed to be in this time where we can do that kind of thing and take what has either been a challenge for us or a painful experience and turn it into something that we can help others with, or take a passion and share it with others.
Yes, exactly. That's the basis of why I do what I do as well. So I'm sure we'll get into that more too.
So yeah, I do want to talk about that a little bit unless this is going to be your story of courage. And if it is, you can stop me and say, wait until later. But I'm super interested about the introverted women, and having grown up fairly introverted myself, I can totally identify with that. And when I was reading your application for the show, that talked about perfectionism and trying to get everything right. And oh my gosh, I can totally identify with all of those things. So I'm guessing that that's coming from a place of experience.
Yes, definitely. So just a little bit of background about me. I'm now a professional mental health counselor, published writer, blogger, and Pathfinder coach for introverted women. But yeah, so much of that, especially being a Pathfinder coach, came out of being an introvert myself and always being mislabeled so often, as shy, quiet, reserved, antisocial, all of those wonderful things that introverts are called. That just really isn't true. And so that really shapes, what you think about yourself as you're growing up, if you don't realize who you are and that you aren't those things that people label you as, that you actually have a lot of strengths of being reflective and observant and insightful and all those things that introverts are also well known for. So having that experience in my life of being mislabeled, I wanted to definitely help introverted women overcome that in their own lives, and then guide them to, create a career that's really based on their strengths and passion as well, instead of based on some mislabeled or misguided idea that they have of themselves just because of things that they've been called in the past or the negative experiences they've had.
Well, when you said shy, quiet, and reserved, I was like, oh my gosh, those are all the things that people said about me. And I said that about myself too.
Right.
No one would guess that I lean towards the introverted side because I grew up dancing and I love being on stage and performing, but it took me a long time to realize, oh, I'm an introvert who loves an audience.
Right. Exactly. And that's the beautiful thing, is that not all introverts are just, you can be like quiet and, you love to read books and you're more of the at-home kind of person, but you can also have, a big personality and love to be with people. It doesn't mean that you don't like people either because you're an introvert. I'm definitely an introvert, but I love working with people and helping people. So there's all kinds of, various personalities within being an introvert as well. So yeah, I'm so glad that you made that point.
Yeah, I think it's so important to know. And I don't know if you use this as a working definition, but I remember hearing that extroverts get energy mainly from outside of themselves, and introverts get their energy from inside themselves, which is why the reflection and quietness and insightfulness happens. And I can see that so much with my kids. I have one who's definitely more introverted and one who is always feeding off the energy of other people. And to me, those definitions sat so much better with the introverted as someone who's shy and doesn't like people, and the extrovert is performing. And
Right. Yeah, it has so much to do with just where you gain your energy. It's not that introverts dislike people. It's just that it's draining. Whether you're having a great time and you're around people that you love, it's just being around people, and just even noisy environments or crowded places or things like that. It's just how our brains are wired, how we process and respond to, stimulation and information around us is just different than extroverts. Extroverts tend to get excited about anything going on and all the noise and all the talking and the crowds, and they're just able to respond immediately. Introverts need more time to process what's going on, and they're thinking about it, and they're thinking about how they feel about it, and they're relating it to past experiences and stuff. So we just need more quiet time, definitely. So both of those have to do with those differences.
Well, I think that is so fascinating, and I'm sure light bulbs are going off in the minds of our listeners going, oh my gosh, I never thought of myself that way. Or it's so helpful to know more about ourselves. And that's what I feel like life is actually about, is self-discovery. And then when we can accept parts of ourselves that we have tried to avoid or hide, and then openly share them like you're doing with helping introverted women, rather than taking it as negatives, just shifting it around and saying, hey, I can actually help you with this, and this is my journey. And that's what life is all about to me. And I just think that's so exciting. So I love that you have found that and turned it into a passion and following your purpose for yourself.
Yes, me too. That's what I said. Basically my passion is getting up and doing what I love every morning. So, and I'm so grateful that I'm able to do that.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. So we're going to move into phase 2 of the interview now. And I love to get guests to share a current self-care practice, because as I was saying before, although I've never said it in this way, if you've listened for a long time, you have never heard about the self-care playground. But if we go in, or it could even be an amusement park, and there's always new rides and attractions showing up. And self-care is like that too. Like there are so many different ways we can take care of ourselves that we might never have considered before. And a lot of it even has to do with whether you have introverted or extroverted activities. Some people are going to have self-care practices. Like I had a guest once who said her self-care was playing video games in bed with her husband in the morning before getting up. And I just thought, wow, that never would have occurred to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having said that, I would love to hear something that fills you up, Chelsey.
Yes. So I do all the normal quote unquote normal things that you think of for self-care. Get up early, exercise, read, write, love to be in nature. So of course, taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, all those things are important. But relating it to being an introvert, this is definitely something that comes out of that and why it's so important to me. I would say the biggest thing that I've done that's made a real difference in my life is taking or being very intentional about taking time to reflect and just think through things, think through experiences, and specifically think through how I want my life to go. So kind of like a type of meditation, but more of a reflection of where I'm at, where I want to be, and what steps I can utilize to get there. Really trying to get mental clarity and allowing myself that time for reflection. And that's important for all of us, but especially for introverts because of how our brains are wired. We need that time to be away from all the noise and stimulation around us and just sit in silence and reflect and process. Otherwise, our brain is just on information overload and we feel, just fuzzy and unclear and kind of foggy. So taking time to reflect where I'm at now, where I want to go, and then how to get there has been a really important part of my self-care practice.
So do you do that on a regular basis? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I try to work it into my morning routine. So like I said, I'll get up early, I'll exercise, and then try to do some kind of visualization or affirmation or just kind of quiet reflection time. And sometimes it happens at night too. I aim for that to be every day because our lives can just be so crazy and chaotic and hectic sometimes that sometimes you need to take it day by day and have reflection time, but at least a few times a week, whether it's to get out in nature and just take a walk and, not listening to anything, not listening to music or anything, just hearing nature and allowing your mind to wander itself has just been super healing for me.
Yeah, you're making some great points there. If we're always plugged into stuff coming at us, we don't get to know who we are. And my husband teaches junior high and high school kids, and he noticed that was a huge thing. And so he's been teaching them how to just be in silence and be okay with no external stimulation. And wow, it is really hard for kids who have grown up with that. And so adults, I think a lot of adults have fallen into that too, like always having the radio on or the TV or having music. And I hear what you're saying, that it's so important just to be with yourself.
Yes, that reminds me, and I still practice as a professional counselor as well, and I work with a lot of kids, and this new generation coming up is more exposed to just electronic and stimulation, I think, than ever before. It's just so easily accessible, and so much is affected by that, social skills and really creativity and imagination. If we're not going inward, I'm afraid of, where innovative ideas are going to go, because creativity really thrives in silence and meditation. And like you said, we're just always plugged in. So we're always just listening to someone else, and information can be great. But now I think we have a bigger responsibility and obligation to sift through all of that, find what's relevant, what's not, but then also remember listening to yourself is just as important as learning about whatever new thing is coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I could just make so many different comments on that. I'll
we
ask
could
you
go
a
on about
question.
that.
Yeah, I'll ask you a question instead. I was even like, should I shift my entire business and become get on a soapbox about how to parent kids without not always being
that's another technology. Passion, but
yeah, I'm not going to go there. So the question I have for you instead is this reflection, this thinking time, something that you have always done, or did it come out of an absence of it and then realizing, oh, this is something that's really good for me, particularly because of my introverted tendencies?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I guess growing up as a kid, I was homeschooled as well, and I'm an only child. So for a lot of kids, they would kind of go crazy, I guess, if you were an extrovert.
Yeah, right.
Of course, I still had a lot of social time. We went to a local co-op where, a lot of other homeschool families got together, and I was in gymnastics and softball and basketball, so I had plenty of social time as well. But I also had a lot of just reflection time. I grew up on a farm, and I had so much time to just be in nature. And so when I'm in silence, even as an adult, I feel like I'm connecting to that part of me, that core part of me as a child that got to just explore and use my imagination and be with my animals. I always had, cats and dogs and farm animals and stuff like that. So it really brings me back to who I am at the core. And it's just refreshing, I think, to be able to still use that in my practice now as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is great information you're giving us, Chelsey. Thank you for sharing that self-care practice. So powerful and important. Mm-hmm. And we're going to pause for a quick commercial break. So when we come back, we're going to get into your story of courage. So listeners, be sure to stick around because there is so much wisdom and juiciness in the stories of courage. So we will be right back. Here we are. Here you are. We are all back together. Yay, you made it through the commercial. Awesome. So, Chelsey, I love to get guests to share a story of courage, and for a whole bunch of different reasons. One of the reasons that I feel it's important to hear stories of courage is, again, this playground idea is just really at the front of my mind today. So when we go through life, often we can think, I'm not courageous, and courage is so important. To me, it's the difference maker between a life of mediocrity and a life of fantastic achievement and feeling nourished and fulfilled and productive and all those juicy things. So we might not think that we are courageous, or it might never have even crossed our minds that it's important. Mm-hmm. And so when we hear different people's stories of courage, it's like walking through that amusement park or that playground and going, oh, I didn't know that was courageous. I've done that. Or, oh, I'm in that situation and I hadn't considered moving through it in that way. Or, oh my gosh, I feel so stuck. And oh, she went through the same thing. So it is educating ourselves on courage. And the more we get the energy of courage from far away from us right into our heart, which is where courage resides, it gives us permission to do the same in our lives. And so I love to hear different stories of courage. And having said that, I would love to hear yours. Well, one of yours. I'm sure you have many.
Yeah, I love that explanation. That's so true, because so many times we don't even recognize ourselves as courageous until we see it in someone else and we think, wow, I've done that too. And then we can finally give ourselves permission to say, maybe I'm, more courageous than I thought. So yeah, I love that explanation. So throughout my life, I've been through a lot. I've had my dad leave. I've been cheated on, divorced. I've been in a car accident that left me with a concussion and spinal issues all before I was 23 years old.
Wow.
So, but even after all of that, I would say that the scariest and biggest fears I had to work through have to do with starting my own business and being an entrepreneur. When I started this Pathfinder coaching business, I didn't have a background in business or marketing. My background is in mental health and counseling, which is great because it gave me the skills and strategies that I needed and the personal development side. But I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing at all to be able to start a business. I didn't know how to do this. So, if it succeeds or fails, I felt like it was on me and there's no one else really to blame or take responsibility for how it goes. And I had all these doubts in my mind, like we all do when we start something new, about, whether I can really do this, whether I was good enough, what would happen if I fail. And pursuing what you really want is always the scariest thing, because we're most afraid of failing at what we really want. So to follow my passion to be a coach for introverted women, which was and is so meaningful to me, it's completely in alignment with who I am, what I want to do, and it's where I know I can provide the most value to other people. So I have a lot of expectations on myself to be the person that I want to be and to be able to help people as much as I can. And when you start a business, when you become an entrepreneur, you have to face so many of your fears and doubts about what you think you're capable of and what you can really do with your life. So considering everything, I would say that just starting that business and going out on my own and really pursuing what you want, because there's so much vulnerability in that as well. I don't have a fallback. Like, going after what you want is the most important thing to you. So you have so much riding on it in your mind. So for me, that has been, I think, the most courageous thing I've done is just pursuing a life that I truly wanted and not really having a plan B, just going after it full force.
I can totally identify, Chelsey. I had planned to be a teacher for my whole life. And I taught for 3 years and then had my kids and retired from teaching and realized I never wanted to go back because it was an energy sucking vortex. But I do love teaching. And so I can identify with not knowing anything about business and marketing and sales and the technology. Oh my gosh, the technology that's required to be an entrepreneur, right?
There's so much to be overwhelmed by.
Yes, there is. And I felt confident that I could design programs and convey my information effectively. And yet I feel like sometimes all the stuff that I've needed to learn in order to do what I already love to do, I feel like I've gotten several PhDs in what I didn't want to know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And that's so powerful that you say you don't have a plan B. Like, this is it. Right. And I think that's such a good indicator that you've landed on something that is so important for you. And so if you're listening, I would challenge you, if you're constantly thinking of plan Bs, maybe you're not maybe you're not following your passion or living the life that you were meant to live. Yeah. So how did you, so I'm just going to ask a question on when it became clear to you that you were going to move forward in this direction, which was different from anything else you had experienced or planned for yourself, probably, I'm just assuming. How did you take the leap? Like, how did you go from immense doubt to, okay, I'm going to take the first step?
Yeah, great question. So throughout my life, I've always been interested in personal development. I joke that I've always been a counselor in the making, like since I was a child, because I was like 10 years old and decided I was going to be a mental health counselor. So I've always had that plan. And so I always knew I wanted to pursue some type of psychology, personal development kind of career. So obviously I went with being a counselor because that was the most obvious choice, I guess. And I'm so grateful for that background. And like I said, I still counsel people as well. But that gave me, the opportunity to build all of those skills and get the education that I needed and just further hone my understanding of everything. But at the same time, I started college when I was 16, speaking of perfectionism and overachievement issues. I started college when I was 16, and that was about the time that I also learned about the word introversion and what that meant. Now, I was fortunate enough to be raised by a mom who was also an introvert and an empath. So she was really crucial in helping me understand, there was nothing wrong with being quiet. There's nothing wrong with being reflective. So it's not that I thought something was wrong with it, but I still didn't know what to call it until I was able to go to college, have psychology classes and read books and really get into this personality and temperament stuff that I was like, wow, I found, what has been quote unquote wrong with me my whole life. Being an introvert and being misunderstood. So once I discovered that, I immediately, of course, had a passion for introversion and especially introverted women. And then as I became a counselor, I really wanted to hone in on helping introverted women and niching down in that way. But I didn't want to just offer counseling. I wanted to be able to, coach and do that online and offer programs and things like that. So at the same time, I pursued being a Pathfinder coach as well. So it kind of all, I guess it all came around at the same time that I wanted to be, or that I was becoming a counselor. Then I pursued being a coach as well. But it's just definitely, it's been a journey, but it all makes sense. As they say, hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
So looking back, I can see that this was always in the making. It's not exactly the life I had planned. But I wouldn't trade it for anything though.
So it sounds like, Chelsey, you were tuning into your intuition, even though it wasn't super overt. It was just following, okay, this is showing up. I'm going to pursue that. This feels important. I'm going to do that. Is that how it happened for you?
Yeah, that's a really good way to explain it. And that's such an important point too, that if you have this thing that just kind of won't leave you, you have this gnawing feeling that I need to do this. But then as soon as we really hear that, we hear that part inside of us that says, oh, like you really need to do this. We have such resistance to that as well. And I love getting into all the brain-based stuff as well about why that happens. But we go into fear mode or overwhelm, or we just kind of get paralyzed and we think, yeah, that's really important. That seems really big. So that's scary because there's so much riding on it and it's so important to me. So sometimes, unfortunately, we pick careers or jobs that are less aligned with what we really want, but they're safer, or they seem safer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yes, learning how to manage those fears and everything was a huge part to overcoming this. And something really important that I've learned is that successful people feel fear. They just don't get paralyzed by it.
Absolutely.
And that's a big difference.
Yeah, with courage, the philosophical definition of courage is actually feeling the fear and having a value or something on the other side that is more important to you than staying stuck and hiding from the fear. So with courage, there is always fear, and it's learning strategies to move through that and to also be really connected with your heart on what's going to happen on the other side. And for me, which is true for most people that I've talked with, if not all, by the time you move through that fear and get to the other side, you realize, oh, it wasn't quite as bad as I thought. And wow, it's so amazing to be over here.
Yeah, exactly. It's all worth it. And I think that's part of the reason I was able to push past my fears, is because I wasn't completely focusing on those. I was looking toward the future of who I wanted to be, where I wanted to go. And so I always had that why right in front of me. So it's not that you ever get to a point or you ever get to a success level where you don't feel fear. You just know how to handle it better at that point, and you focus on what you want more than what you're scared of.
Exactly. Oh, amazing information. Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing your story. It's a really powerful one, and I can definitely identify with it and appreciate it. So I'm sure that there are people listening who are saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I was an introvert. I've only just ever used those words, and I thought there was something wrong with me, like you said, quote unquote. So if people want to find out more about your programs and services and more about you, how can they connect with you online?
Yeah, well, you can definitely visit my website. I have a blog there, and also a free training series up right now about how to get crystal clear on your values. If you're listening but you're confused even on what you would want to do, and you don't even know what your passion would look like, there's a training series on there to help you with that. And it also gives you tips for mindset strategies that you're going to need during that journey once you get clear. And within the training, there's also a 5-step how to find your passion document. So it walks you through that. And then creating genuine self-belief in who you are and realizing what you're capable of, even if you're an introvert. In fact, because you're an introvert, you're going to have so many more strengths than you even realized. So you can find that on my website at thepathfinderforyou.com. And then I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, also at The Pathfinder For You.
Beautiful. So I encourage you listeners to take action on getting that free training, because wow, that sounds really succinct and powerful and step-by-step, really clear on how to get more clarity. Of course, you want to be clear moving through the steps to find clarity, right? So it sounds like you've crafted a really powerful experience. And so I encourage you to go to the show notes for this show, click on the link, and you will be magically whisked away by technology, which can be awesome as well. It's not always a negative to Chelsey's resource. So Chelsey, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the gift of your expertise and your experience and your stories.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun. Thank you.
I'm so glad and appreciative to have you here. And listeners, thank you. Today you get to give yourself, with my permission, you can give yourself a giant gold virtual star. Like, I used to love getting stickers growing up. So that gold star sticker, you get it today. You get to give it to yourself for showing up and educating yourself and being in this amazing energy. We all have choices on what media we are going to listen to. And I feel like podcasts and uplifting media are definitely the way to go if you are interested in becoming the best version of yourself. So giant gold star virtual sticker for you. Give yourself a pat on the back. And the show airs usually once a week, so be sure to come back and listen again. It alternates it just alternates between having interviews and learning from other people, and then focused, action-oriented, strategic self-care tips and guidance and strategies. So thank you for being here. Chelsey, thanks again for being here as well.
Thank you.
And I look forward to connecting with you listeners again next time. Bye-bye for now.